Welcome, everybody. Welcome back to another Ask the Trainer session. And yeah, please make sure to write down all your questions that you have. We're going to start with a few things that we have prepared, but then we will dive right into it. So before we start, I'm going to take care of the housekeeping. As you all know, probably, we can find the events page on the Maxon website. So when you go to the Maxon website and news, events, then you can find all the shows where we are live, be it in person, be it a live stream, and you can explore that. There's a lot of exciting stuff coming. And just in case you missed one of our live streams, you can always go to the Maxon Training Team YouTube channel, and here you can find, all of the recordings. And also make sure that you check out the ZBrush Summit that is going to start soon. And yeah, the next thing, when you are new, or if you want to improve your knowledge on any of the Maxon applications, then you just go to cineversity.maxon.net, and here you can find all sorts of getting started series for all of our products. Yeah, all right. So another thing that I want to add is if you want to, if you are interested in becoming a certified pro user or a certified trainer, you can always go to the certification pages on the Maxon website, maxon.net/certification, and find out more about this. Right. And then before we start, I want to point out here the merch store, and let me see where I can find the link. Actually, I did not prepare that here. That's that's interesting. Okay, so let me share the coupon code later. Yeah, I will do that. But here's the merch store, and the cool thing about it is you can order one t-shirt for free, and you only would have to pay for the shipping. Exactly, that is the link to the Maxon merch store. Thank you, Noseman. Let me just...
And for the month of September, the passcode for that is Cinema 4D Workflows, all caps.
You're the best. You're the best. Thank you for that. All right. So, yeah, let's just forget that I forgot to prepare that. And let's jump right into Cinema 4D. The thing that I have prepared is a pretty simple scene here. It just has a text spline object in it. And what I want to show here is something that many people don't know. You can modify splines procedurally. And there are a bunch of spline modifiers in Cinema 4D's asset browser that you can use to do so. So let me open up the asset browser and let's just search for spline modifier. And then you have all the spline modifiers here and a few example scenes. All of these have been created by the amazing team of Rocket Lasso. So let me just show you a few of these. Actually, one of my favorites is the trim spline modifier. So you just drag and drop it out here and add it to the text spline. You have to add it just as a deformer or so as a child, right? And then what you can do here is you can adjust the start and the end. And of course, everything can be animated. One thing that I like a lot is that we have an offset parameter and a rate parameter. And if you just bring up the rate and press play, you would have an automatic animation. So you can create something like that, which is pretty neat and easy. Okay, so the next thing that I want to show is the electric spline modifier. I also love this one a lot because it's a super easy way to create stuff like lightnings and everything that is somehow electric. So just add this as well. We can added just after the trim spline modifier. The execution order is the same as with deformers from top to bottom. And now we would already have, some electrified splines. And of course, we can adjust the displacement. Let's make it a little less. We can adjust all sorts of noise settings. And one thing that I like here a lot is, by default, it would would start at the starting point and end at the ending point, and then fade itself in. But you can just simply bring down the start and end parameters here under fixed start and end, and this will make these the start and the end also random, and then you would have something like this. Okay, another thing that I really love, and I'm gonna make these two just inactive, is the dash spline modifier. So if you use the dash spline modifier, you can create dashed lines, and it's just super easy because everything is procedural here. You can adjust the splines. You could adjust the text here. Let's just go with spline modifier instead of modifiers, or add an exclamation mark, whatever. And then you could, of course, adjust the length here. You could adjust this by count and also by percentage, which is also something that I like. And down here, there's one thing that I love very much. You can adjust the pattern. By default, it's just this 50% pattern. That means 50% of a whole, let's say, dash spline modifier segment is spline, and the other 50% are no spline. And of course, you can adjust this value here, but you can also set this to custom. And what you get then is a list where you can define the amount of spline modifier segments, so to speak, and then which ones are visible and which ones aren't. So let's say I want to add another short spline here, another short line. I would just append two more and just add this one here. So now we would have one long line and then two lines that are a little bit smaller. And of course, we also have the rate and offset here, which I like a lot. Okay, let's go on to the next one. Let's use the break spline modifier. What I like with this one here is that you have this gap setting. And whenever you use the gap, it will create a gap and just extend it to the left and the right, which is quite cool. And you can adjust the randomness here. Did I say that correctly? Randomness. However, I think now I did. And there's also a bias that you can use to have more gaps on the start of the spline or on the end, at the end of the spline and stuff like that. So this is also a really cool one. And you have more options for creating these gaps based on percentage, on angle, on points, and whatnot. So this is also a pretty cool one. And then there is the Catenary spline. Is that the right way to pronounce it, Noseman?
I think it's Catenary. I mean, I speak the Queen's English, so it may be different from the...
All right. Me neither.
Yeah.
Whatever people or person on the stream might have noticed that. However, this modifier can be used to create hanging wires. And this is also absolutely amazing. So the way you would add this, let me just make this invisible as well, is also just as a child. So one thing that is a little bit unexpected in the beginning is that we now have more hanging wires than spline segments that we created. But if we go to the spline settings and just set the spline type to linear, then we would have exactly what we wanted. And now we could just go in here and say, okay, let's move this point here. Let's move this point there to really just move them a little bit in 3D space. And once I leave, or I deselect the spline, we will suddenly have something like this. So this is the spline modifiers, and I think they are a really, really great way to procedurally adjust splines and just do stuff that you couldn't do before. Of course, as I said, it's all procedural. So you can adjust the parameters here, you can adjust the variation, the bias, and also the gravity here, and you have the seed, all of that. So definitely check out all of these spline modifiers so that you can add them to your workflows. And here you can see a few example scenes that the team at Rocket Lasso created so that you can see how to use these. All right, so this is what I wanted to show. Now let's have a look at some of the questions. Did you already have a look at some of the questions?
I have a list. By the way, everyone, hi, I'm Noseman. Someone forgot to introduce me, but it's okay.
Oh, sorry. So this is Noseman. You might have seen him at previous Ask the Trainer streams.
I'm joking.
My name is Jonas, by the way. Yeah.
I never lose an opportunity to make fun of someone, and that's what I do with myself when I forget things. But hey, yeah, who's counting? It's in my notes now, Jonas. I'll be coming to you with a favor very soon,
Okay.
as being Greek requires everything to be paid back by a favor. So I have marked some questions here, and first of all, I want to make a generalized comment. The student backend is getting an update, so there's nothing we can say or do. Please talk to your education supervisor to contact someone at Maxon. So we can't provide those answers. Number two, Jean Erdoman, very good friend of ours that made the fantastic Artista and all that. Don't post questions if you had Uzo. He was on a holiday these days, and we'll take this offline, the questions about the transferring animation and all that. Now, another few questions. Vanelos, hi, back to you. How you doing? You have a few questions there. When will Maxon overwork the F-curve editor and make it usable? It is very much usable. If you have any specific issues, please post them to tech support, or if you have a specific thing that doesn't work, please provide some sort of file, some sort of description, because as far as I use it, I'm pretty sure there may be other ways of people using it, but if you can be more specific, that will be great. When is Maxon going to add scale rotation and translation modes, local, other than local and world, parent or relative? Well, where and how? Again, if you can be a bit more specific, because local is based on the parent, unless you're talking about the components of an object, where its parent is the object axes and so forth. That will be it's an interesting thing to know what exactly you would like to see, because it could be an interesting subject for discussion. Let's go up a bit. How can you make a tank truck? So from Abdullah Asiri, tank truck around tank wheel. It all depends. So this is how I begin all my answers. It all depends what kind of control you want. If you want it to be dynamic, if you want it to be static, if you want it all depends on what kind of tank track you want, how you want it to behave. And this is a general theme with questions, not only with questions, but with projects you set up yourselves. How you're going to execute a seemingly identical thing depends highly on how you want to control it. So do you want to drive the tank, move the vehicle, and you want the tank treads to move, to rotate accordingly? Do you want it to steer? Do you want to drive a tank by putting speeds and all that? It all depends. Again, if you can be a bit more specific, because I can give you a very simple answer as to how you would make a generic tank track, and this will be let's get let's make a spline of sorts. I'm going to go with a rectangle just to keep things simple. I'm going to round it. There you go. I'm going to make sure I have a natural intermediate points, and this will allow me to go to something like MoGraph, for example, and make my cube, which I'm going to set my MoGraph to an object, drag the rectangle in here, make it smaller and adjust the object sizes. So make it like this, and like this, and like this. So my the line subdivision shouldn't be natural. Maybe it needs to be uniform, and increase this. So make sure that the cloner is cloning on. If you're not going to do count, you may even want to do an even distribution, and then you can add a rate. And for all intents and purposes, this will function as a tank track, sorry. So this may be good enough for your setup. Maybe you want to make this, dynamic. You can use the bullet engine with, so you can use a rigid body, the old bullet, and you can go and add follow rotation and follow position, and add some sort of floor here. Where's my floor? It's in the standard render. And let's get the floor, drop it down. This is going to break, but nonetheless, just showing you some alternatives. And you can see it's fallen on the ground now. It's trying to rotate, to hold its position and its rotation. You can play around with the values here. You can add some cylinders in here and all that kind of stuff. So the details about this is, do you want these to be connected using connectors? Then it's a totally different story. Do you want to move your vehicle and you want your tracks to move with it? It's a totally different story. So it depends. That's why I always start with it depends. It'll be interesting to address this as a very specific setup. And sometimes there's no simple way, right? Maybe it's not a couple of things you could do, but you need to do a heavy interconnected setup that satisfies your ability to control your contraption or your rig, because essentially putting things together makes it a rig. So those are the specifics that matter. Otherwise, there you go. This is a tank track. But I'm pretty sure this is not what you were talking about. So yeah, that's all I can fit in this small segment. And again, if you are specific in the types of setups you want, that will allow us to give you some sort of direction. We can definitely not set it up for you. That will be a different profession. Okay, let me go and check out a few more of these questions. Greg's question: is there a way to set up a situation so that operations are specific to file type when saving FBX file? See what he remembers with. I mean, in theory, yes, we don't have something like that implemented. I use my Windows quick, what is that called? It's the quick access to do that, and I temporarily drag folders there. So, but there's no automated way. Maybe you should submit an idea to Max about that, because I do find that it could be a useful thing. Although then the question becomes, what if I want to work on another project? Then I need to go and select another FBX folder. What if I have two projects and I want FBX from this project to go somewhere and these from these projects to go somewhere else? We can't, Jonas, any tokens? We can't use tokens in the save. Anyway, it's complicated. Gwen's question: how can I drive animation? Can you be a bit more specific in what type of animation you want to drive, under what circumstances? Now, let's go here. I'm just putting them up. I hope there are no profanities. Realistic soap bubble foam, like when bubble pops and another takes. Oh, wow. Again, this is not something you can do. It's not a you can't describe setup like that. It's going to be purpose-built to do something very specific, probably going to entertain some dynamic simulations, some gravities, some MoGraph, some, many other things. But there's no automated way to do that. I don't think there is any software that does automatic bubbles, as far as I'm concerned. Any ideas on that, Jonas? Have you ever seen? I mean, I've seen setups,
No.
but they're quite complex. How can we drive a text with MoExtrude? Can you be, Cabal, a bit more specific? What do you mean drive a text with MoExtrude? I can show you how the what the MoExtrude does. So you can take any object, and because it's a MoGraph object, MoExtrude, you drag it here, and it treats every single polygon as a MoGraph cloner. That's what it does, and it operates on each polygon, and it's going to do 4 extrusion steps. And for each extrusion step, it's going to move it in the local Z by this value, and it's going to scale it by this value. You can rotate it and do all sorts of interesting things and rotate them and do that. What the MoGraph element is with the MoExtrude, and as usual, I always prefer either hexahedron or icosahedron with the little triangles. A little tip, if you select the S, you select them all, and if you use your control or command and you drag in here, it changes all the values at once. Another thing you can do is you can go with your arrow key and press control or command when you press enter, and it will transfer that value. So I'm going to go here and say down, 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 control, enter. It's going to apply that value to all 3, just in case you didn't know. So the great thing about the MoExtrude is that if you drag any effectors, they will affect every step of this, where each polygon was. So you can take a random effector, and it's going to randomize the positions, those position scales and rotations based on what you're doing. So basically, it uses every step of your extrusion and treats it as a, let's say, MoGraph component. And if there's a particular, go ahead.
He specified the question a bit more. It's about a text reveal from cubes, from cloned cubes.
I did a presentation a long time ago about this, but the MoExtrude has nothing to do with that. If you want to reveal something, it's a relatively multi-step process, and again, it depends. There's no other answer. So let's take a text spline and ask the trainer. It takes me longer to type than to make these setups. So ask the trainer. Number one, if you're going to do dissolving or revealing, it's good to have polygons, simple polygons, not n-gons as we have here. So go change, for example, this to a natural. Go to the caps and set this to regular grid. Make it quad dominant. Make this smaller. Go to your extrusion, this here, and add a few segments to get smaller polygons. And let's make that, let's increase this number. So we have enough polygons now. Everything is subdivided nicely. This doesn't seem to be any problem. If you get truncated corners, you can always change from natural to subdivided, and that way you will control the round parts and the straight parts in a separate manner. So it always helps to use this. Okay, so let's make this. We double click here. Oh, I think I scrolled to 0. Yep. We just need to give it a few seconds because it's trying to calculate an enormous amount of polygons now. I'm pressing escape as well just to make sure. Oh, my computer is firing up.
Yay.
There you go. So just make this 2 and you're good. It just takes a few seconds because I created a few million polygons by mistake. So now what you can do, because this has all these little polygons here, the ideal effect for this, if you want to use MoGraph, would be the poly effects. The poly effects seemingly does nothing. If you set it to partial, full polys and segments, as it is now, the polygons, again, are treated like clones. So if I render this, you don't see a difference. You won't see any artifacting. Let me change to standard render just to get things go a bit faster. So you can see there's no breaks here, but the poly effects can accept effectors. So each effector I apply here is going to apply to each polygon separately. So if I take the plane effector and put the scale to, let's say, uniform scale -1, so -1, I'm making the polygons invisible, right? Because each polygon now has been disconnected from the rest, and I can scale it down. Now I can use a linear field, and I can bring this linear field in to reveal the logo, and it's going to bring it this way. At the same time, I can add a secondary effect. I can say, okay, I've got my linear field here with a basic control. Maybe I should go to the poly effects and add a random effector. And you tell the random effector to accept the same field, and suddenly, just like that, you have this vanishing or appearing motion. So let me do that, and look at that. And it looks very simulated, dynamic, and all that, but in fact, it's just polygons that are moving in random directions, and everything is done through the poly effect. So this is something you could potentially do. If there's something more specific, you can clone on this and make little cubes vanish. You clone them and you use the same field to control it. There's no limit to what you can do once you have this sort of control. Yeah, that will be.
I would love to show another way of revealing a text with cubes. Let me quickly grab the screen here and let's do this like maybe like so or so. All right. So one thing that you could do as well is to really make cubes out of the existing text. And so you wouldn't do that by cloning cubes onto that. But what you can do is you can use the Voronoi Fracture and use it to create cube-like fragments and then create the effect based on that. So I'm going to create a Voronoi Fracture here. And once I put the text beneath it, you can see, all right, now we have everything fractured here. Of course, we can bring up in the sources the amount of fragments. Let's go with 200, but these are not cubes, right? So they are MoGraph clones. Each and every fragment in here is a MoGraph clone. Let me bring up the lines here. So the shortcut for bringing them up is NB. It's in here. NA is Guru shading. NB is Guru shading with lines. And now what I can do is I can use a matrix object to create a cube-like pattern in here. Let's do this. I'm going to delete the default point generator because it's going to create random points, and based on these points, the fracturing pattern will be created.
I have a little comment to make. If every single one of our viewers had watched all the content we've made over the last 15 years, which amounts to about 3 lifetimes, you would know all this, right?
That's true. There is a lot. There is a lot of knowledge out there, but unfortunately, that's not how it works. We have to repeat ourselves.
It's simple. Stop working, stop sleeping, stop eating, quit your hobby, and watch our content all the time. I mean, it doesn't get simpler than that, right?
I've never thought about that. However, so the way you would turn this into cube fragments is to use a matrix object, because the matrix object is coming in with a grid by default, and we can use this grid to fracture the text. And because it is so symmetric, or not symmetric, but geometric, it will create a cube-like pattern. So let me set this up a little bit. let's go with just one fragment here in Z direction. And let's say, well, let's go with 50 here. So the thing is, you see cubes here, but actually these are just placeholders or indicators that there is a position and an alignment or a rotation and a scale in 3D space. So we're not creating cubes here. We are just creating matrices or positions with rotations and scale in them. And these are shown as cubes here in the viewport so that we know what we are creating. So let me bring up the count here in X direction, something like that. And I think that's looking quite good. I'm going to make this a little bit taller. And now when I use that to fracture the text here in the sources of the Voronoi fracture, you will see that we can dice the text. And yeah, maybe let's say these fragments are too small, then we can just scale the matrix object up. And yeah, this way we could even bring down a few of these segments here, but also maybe bring up this side so that we have a cut here as well. And maybe let me make the matrix invisible because it's kind of in the way. All right, let me move the matrix object.
The general suggestion is drag anything in the sources. Just go crazy one day. Make a cube, put it under a Voronoi fracture, start by dragging itself, right? You can do that.
Yeah.
Drag an object, drag a spline, drag a matrix, drag a MoGraph cloner with other stuff underneath. You will see that you can get these amazing patterns and you can combine them because you can add more than one objects. But dragging the object itself, just make a sphere, make it icosahedron. And Jonas, when you're done with this, show that icosahedron sphere under Voronoi, drag itself, and
there are super cool things that you can do. Let me finish that, and we can dive a little bit more into the Voronoi fracture because it's actually one of my favorite tools. I love showing that. So now we have these cube fragments, but the Voronoi fracture object is not just there to break stuff up. As you can see, you can break it in a very controlled and geometric way. But the thing is that this is also a MoGraph generator. And that means that you can use all sorts of effectors on it. So let me go to the effector tab. It's empty right now. Let's keep the Voronoi fracture selected. And let's just say we want a plane effector here. Let's just create the plane effector. Let's not, let's use the position here. Let's move it a little bit to the left. Let me rotate all the fragments a little bit. So yeah, it looks weird a little bit at the moment. And also, let me scale it down. I'm going to set the uniform scale to -1, and this will make all of these clones vanish. But now, when I go to the effector and play with the strength, you can see that I can reveal the text here in this shape or in this, using this effect. And if I use a field with that, let's say a linear field, let me just add one, then, well, let me see, why is it not working? Something is not working here. Well, that should work actually, but I think I am in the effector, I'm at 0%. So now let's do it like this. Okay, right. So what we can do here is now move or animate this linear field, and it will just do what we want. We can also make it so that it's the other way around, and then we could reveal it from this side. So actually, this side was better, but maybe in the plane effector, let me adjust this value to be the other way around, or maybe even more. And this way, we could reveal it like that. And we can even build up on this, because this is not just a thing about the Voronoi fracture, but also about fields. And fields are gradients in 3D space or masks in 3D space. So what we could also do here is we could now add a random effector as well. So let's add a random effector. and mask the random effector with the very same field. So let's put it in here, and suddenly we can mask both effectors with a single field and go from a very random distribution here to these building blocks that we have. And yeah, it's all procedural. So if we want this structure here, these cubes, to be a little bit tilted, let's just tilt the matrix object, and suddenly we have this here, right? So you can see that it's now tilted. It's not perfectly horizontal and vertical anymore. So this is a really cool way to create something like that. What Noseman said earlier is really important. Play with these sources. Let me just make it a little bit more visible and show something. Let me just make the size of this cube very flat, maybe even flatter than that. And let's have a look. So by default, when I fracture something, there we go, you can see this pattern here. That's again the Voronoi pattern, and it is based on points. So when we go to the sources tab, there is a point generator. There's no fragment generator, right? And you can adjust a point amount here, and it's set to 20. And that means within the volume of this flat cube, the algorithm is creating 20 points. So what is this about? Let me bring this down to explain to you how it works, because this is very, very important and very simple. So we have these 2 points, and then exactly in the middle between these points, there's a cut, right? And then I adjust this and add a third point. Suddenly you can see these 2 points, and this is the cut, these 2 points, and this is the cut. And you can see this point, and this point, and this is the cut. And no matter how high I go with the point amount, it's still the same principle. You can just not see it anymore because it's too many points. Right, so this is how the algorithm works. And now if we use other objects than the point generator to create these points, then we can go really geometric. So let me delete the point generator here. And let's start with a spline. So I'm gonna create a spline from here to there. Press escape to stop it. And yeah, just use it as a source. And suddenly you can see, oh, slices. That's interesting. And the reason why it is slices is because we have these points and they are being created on the spline. And because it's a perfect line, we will have perfect slices as the result. All right, let's use another type of spline. Let's maybe use a circle spline and set it so that it's in the XZ plane. What will happen now? Right, let's put it in here. We are creating like a pie or pizza. So, and the principle again is the same. So we have these points here and the cuts in the middle, right? And this way you can create so many cool things. You can even, and that's something that I really love, you can fracture an object with itself as an input. And with the cube, it doesn't look super interesting. But what you can do here is you can create cuts in the middle of each of the edges. Because when I use the object as an input, it will use the points of the object for the fracturing. And suddenly I have these cuts here. Let's do this with a platonic instead. Where do we have it? Platonic. Let's just throw out the cube. Let's use the platonic and let's fracture the platonic with itself. And boom, now we have something like this. And of course, in the Voronoi fracture, you can do a lot of other things like offset the fragments. We can invert this, and suddenly we have really cool shapes within seconds. So definitely explore with these sources because it's super interesting. All right. Yeah, that's. Do you have anything to add to this?
No, just that it's that simple, and you need to become a bit more adventurous with your setups, and especially the Voronoi Fracture. You can even put a particle system, standard particles, in it. So play around, and you will see some extremely interesting results. I do want to address some of the questions. Are we okay to move on?
Yeah, I think
All
so.
right. So let's
Also...
see here. I want to understand this, Saif. How to maintain the promotion of the roundness of the rectangle spline when adjusting the cloner transform. I'm not sure I understand what you mean. If you can clarify what you mean, I'll get back to this question again. So first of all, we have a lot of thanks towards you, Jonas. That was an interesting setup.
You're welcome.
All right, I may show this. So related to bend modifier deformer, it's possible to bend an object from the center. I don't know if this is what you mean, but let me show you what you could do. And it's a little setting. So let's assume that we have this cube. There you go. And of course, when you're doing any deformer stuff, make sure you have the appropriate subdivisions. Let's get the bend. And you can see that the bend deformer does this, okay? And assuming what you mean, and keep length will stop it from deforming too much, I can make this 22, 202, and 22, just so that's a bit bigger, 22. There you go, just so that we can see it. You want this to bend in both sides at the same time. This is the unlimited. The only reason you don't see it now is because the deformer is encompassing the whole thing. If I drag this up halfway, so I need to, if it's 200, I'm going to put it at 100. And now the deformer is actually going to deform this in a symmetrical way. So that's how you would do this. Yeah, so that would be it if I understood the question correctly. And of course, if you want to be really correct, make everything lie exactly where you want them, just put it at 102. 51 is half 102. There you go. So this is the clean way of doing it. I guess that was the question. So
I think so too.
Yeah, let me do that. It's difficult to bend both sides of a rectangle at the same time. It is difficult. Well, yeah, this is how we do it. I think that was a comment rather than a question. Can you fade out geometry? So Sharon, hello Sharon, how are you? Can you fade out geometry with a field? Well, fading out, you can scale things down, as I showed in my polyFX example. How else would you think you would fade it out? You can use materials. So you can paint vertex maps and use them in materials and stuff like that. But geometry, other than moving it, scaling the polygons or moving the points around, or deleting them altogether, because since a few versions ago, we have the ability to put polygon tags, and this will tie. So what I'm going to do in a bit, I'm going to show something relating to nodes, right? Something very simple. And it may tie into what you want. I'm going to see if there's a way to make polygons disappear by deleting them from the geometry in a controlled way. So I'm going to leave that there and move down. Gwen, I have an animation and key from A to B. How can I make a slider to control this animation? There are many ways to do that. You can use the PoseMorph. You can use MoGraph with animated objects in the blend mode. You can use Espresso with various values if you want to animate from one value to another. So I preface this, it depends. So what kind of values or what system are you making? But a PoseMorph, which I'm just going to add it here. Let's go to rigging tags and get the PoseMorph. The PoseMorph has various settings you can morph between. One is points, the typical, creating facial morphs and all that. But we can do hierarchies, we can do positions, we can do all sorts of things. So if you have your object animated in 2 states, you can use a PoseMorph and do that, and then you can create a user data. So if you have a specific simplified scene, and this is my offering towards all our viewers, you can find me on Twitter or Twixer or whatever you want to call it, at NosemanGR, one word, NosemanGR, because I'm Greek. The requirement is that you simplify your scenes. I do not want scenes with shaders, textures, unless it's a texturing problem. Simplify the scene that shows exactly. So in this particular case, send me 2 animated things you want to blend, and I'll potentially give you a solution on how to blend those. So let's go. Jonathan Velos. Velos in Greek means arrow. And I think it's from the Latin, velo. It's one of those words that we stole from the Latins, just for good measure. Confetti out of balloon. Can the confetti that is inside be art directed? To the level that you want, yes, because we do have ways, even if you're going to use a dynamic simulation, there are different ways of art directing it. So you can use, you can sculpt it using fields, using the field force. So let's do a quick little example here. I'm going to get a very small sphere, and even with the new rigid body dynamics, I'm going to just make this a child and create a bunch of these. So 30, set it to multi-instance and increase the number, okay? So what I'm going to do is get rid of gravity to begin with, because, or if you want gravity, you can have it. It just makes things look more fun. And let's set this either using the bullet rigid body or using the new simulated rigid body, depending on what you want to do. So now this is simulating, but there are no forces applied to this. So if I want it to move in a very specific direction, which is the art directability of this whole thing. A great way to do it is using the field force. The field force creates it's a force, but you can control the shape of that force using various types of objects. So in this particular case, I'm going to go and draw a spline in one of my views. So the spline is going to go like that. Okay, now I drew it this way, so I may need to reverse it, but that's not a problem. So in the field force, in the object tab, we have 2 fields. This is the mask, this is the mask, this is the direction. You drag this and it will create, if you go to display and make it a bit taller and increase the line density, what this will create basically is these little lines that point in different directions based on the direction of the spline. And that is your force now, okay? So if I press play, you will see some sort of effect. They're moving. I'm going to increase this to 50. You can see the vectors are bigger, but you can see that they're moving in that general direction. Look at that. So they're moving, they're trying to move in that general direction. So this is one level of arc directability where you can sculpt a certain force so that things go in a particular way. If we're talking about confetti, a lot of very small objects, you may go with a hybrid solution where you would, I don't know, use the forces, the follow position, follow rotation, where if it's 0, then the simulation takes care of where these are going. But once you increase these values, then they're going to try and comply with whatever the MoGraph setup tells them to go. So if I want my final position to be, let's say, let's go MoGraph, and let's go to random effector. So let's assume that this is the final position I want them to be, and add some rotation as well. So there you go. So this is the final position. And I want to transition between the original position and this position in a more dynamic way, so to speak. Well, the way you can do this is you can start your animation doing the simulation using wind or something like that. So let's go and add some sort of wind. And, let's rotate the wind around so it points upwards, and set the wind to a big thing. So now they're going to go up. Good. Add some turbulence to this and turbulence frequency. So they're going to go be a bit, maybe more and less frequency. There you go. So something like that. So they're moving in a certain direction. And I can go to frame, let's say 60, and tell this, for example, that I want, so number one, the random is going to do that. I'm going to go to frame 60 and say, from 0 strength, I want to go, I'm frame 0, sorry. My coffee is in front. So go to frame 60 and say from 0% this to frame 80, it's going to go to 100%. Now, because the dynamics now are totally controlled by the simulation, because there is no follow, right? The follow is the mix animation, the equivalent. Nothing's going to happen. But if I go to whatever frame I want and I get my follow position, follow rotation, and increase it to the level I want, let's say 10 and 10, then that influence is going to start touching my cubes, and they're going to slowly move down to where I want them. So you can mix between simulations, and when they're moving down, they're actually colliding with each other in the sense that they are avoiding penetrations, right? They are trying to get to the correct position. So I can take my random and say, something, I'm going to bring them in quite a bit. I'm going to put 0, 0, 0, just to force them to stay in their sort of positions in some sort of way. And you will see that we don't even get penetrations, because even when the follow position, follow rotation is on, it will still respect the collisions. It doesn't deactivate the simulation. But imagine if you spend more than 5 minutes and put some more controls and all that, you can pretty much art direct it to any level you wish. So that will be the confetti. Let's show the next one. I'm just going down. How to attach one mesh to another. A surface deformer, but using rigid tools for more control and less lag. I think I would go with the I always forget what it's called, rigging tags, a constraint tag in either clamp mode. I think, what do you think, Jonas? Is the clamp mode a good mode to go with these situations?
Yeah.
But I think the clamp will allow you to do that, and you can even do it in transform. Constraining is not transform.
Either the clamp or maybe another thing that you could do if you have a specific point that you want to use is to really clone it onto that point.
Yeah, you can clone it to that point. So let's we can clone it to a point. I mean, the standard method is to go and use a clamp mode in point mode, and that will allow you to do that. But yeah, even with MoGraph, you can do that, and you can mix in some dynamic simulation to avoid penetrations and all that. But that will be a good start: constrain or MoGraph. So again, I'm going to use this all the time. It depends on what you're trying to put where. If you want to put a button on a shirt, the clamp would work quite nice, and also MoGraph as well. Oops, that was the previous one. Now, here's an interesting question by Symphoniac. Can we paint high detail vertex map on low polygon object? No, that's contrary to the whole idea. A vertex map is just a per point attribute. So if you don't have points, it's the question. Let's take the question and expand it to Photoshop. Can I paint a 4K image on a 128 by 128 pixel image? And the answer is no, because when you're painting in Photoshop, you're painting on each pixel. That's what you're doing. If the pixel doesn't exist, you can't paint on it. There is no subset. So as far as if you want to do something like that, this will be a texture. So you would paint it, you would do a vertex painting. Now, this is interesting, right? I'm going to go down this weird rabbit hole. I was developing a technique that in Cinema 4D that was very similar to how ZBrush handles painting and UVs and all that. And if generally there's enough interest, I can make that into tutorial where you can get let's get a character, let's get a male. Let's get a human, right? We have this human face, okay? So this is the human face. Come on, let it load. There we go. So we have this human face. I'm going to get rid of the controls and all that by my friend Orestes and Benjamin, who made this. And let's go to layers. The way I do it, I delete them all. I'm good. And let's get the render scene, get rid of the render. And I'm going to just use the mesh. So get rid of everything else. So here's just the mesh. Okay. Now, if I want to store the value for these pixels in a way that I can do whatever I want with my UVs and the texture is going to stay stuck without baking, there's a little trick, and here's the concept. Make sure that the mesh you have, your mesh, I'm going to get rid of all this, and I just need the head mesh. There you go. No eyes, no tongue, nothing like that. Okay. Make sure you have a very high resolution version of your mesh, right? Give it some time. Just make it where you calculate that depending on the size of your texture, that each polygon is about a pixel size. So I'm going to make this current state to object. And here it is. Current state to object, delete this, delete this, delete this. I love deleting things. Look at that. Now, what I could do for this is I can create a vertex color. And in the vertex color, what I could do with use fields is use a shader field. And in the shader field, I can go and load, if I delete everything else, delete unused materials, I can go here and say, where's my color? It's in reflectance, here it is, textures, copy this link. And I'm going to remove the texture, right? You know that the texture is removed. It doesn't exist. I can go in here, select the shader field, and go here. And I think it was, oh, which one was it? Oh, I can't paste it. I need to find it here. It's called head diffuse. And the great thing is that if you go here and you go to this little menu in the here, so head diffuse, that's what I'm looking for. There you go, text, head diffuse. What I'm having here is a vertex map that has the color stored on each and every one of the points. I don't know why it's prickly here. I think I did something when I deleted everything. But what you're seeing here is that now I have my color on each polygon, which means that if I go to this fine young gentleman and go to UV edit and say, I want to change my UV layout. So I'm going to go here and say, do a packed. Because it's dependent on the points and not dependent on the UVs, this color, this vertex color, so look at all this, right? It's totally changed. And yet, the colors are still the same. So I can go and change various things about my my object. I can change the UV. And if I want to return this back, I just, let me do a unpacking. Let's apply this. Yeah, I want everything though. Why isn't everything happening? Jonas, any ideas? Did I have something selected? I may have had something selected, but I want this guy to do UV unpacking. Yeah, anyway, for whatever reason. I still have my colors in the right position. So all I have to do then is just create a material. I'm just going to go here. I'm going to create a standard material. In the standard material, I'm going to use a vertex color. So go to Effects, Vertex Map. In the Vertex Map, I can drag this. Now, if I render this, and I have to apply this material. So there you go. But what this means is that if I bake this texture now, it's going to bake the correct pixels in the correct UV space. You won't be able to see a nice face like this, you know, this little face. You won't be able to see a face like this, but you will see whatever UV islands you've created, and providing they're not overlapping each other. And this is a technique where it allows you to change the UV and wrapping of an object by using a high number of points as intermediate points, and yet be able to transfer it back. Yeah, anyway, it's a technique under development, and you can try it for your own experiments. But the answer, this was a very, very long answer for the question that you cannot paint a high detail vertex maps on a low poly object unless you do it in a way like this. You do the painting in a high level, and then you bake it out, because that will be the equivalent. And that's exactly how ZBrush painting works. It paints on the vertices. It doesn't paint on the material like you would do in other contexts. So Cabal says he thanks you very much. Yep, go ahead.
Before we go to the next question, I have to leave. So,
okay, let's see if we have any. We have a last unanswered questions from the ones I have seen. I have marked. Can you move Voronoi pieces from a broken state back to initial state dynamically using something like inheritance effector? You can deactivate the animation. So with a bullet, you just go to deactivate. So very quickly, bullet tags, rigid body. There is in the dynamics something that says dynamic transition. If you click on this and put the timing, if you turn off the dynamics, it will take this.
Wait a second. We didn't see that because the text was still in the way. So now you can show it again.
So again, in the bullet rigid body, in the dynamics, you have the dynamic transition and the transition time, which is, if it's on, which is off by default, when you deactivate the dynamics, it will take a certain amount of time to go back to the original position. Another way is to work in a reverse manner, where the original position of your cubes is stored, and then you just increase your follow position and follow rotation, and they will come back to their original position, providing it's high, the value is high enough. So yeah, there are ways of doing this. And how do you export Sym4D simulations into Unreal Engine? You bake them as Alembic and you load them, or something like that. That will be the best way to do that. And I want to respect Jonas's train, and we have overrun by 3 minutes, so we kept with our tradition of overrunning a bit. Any more questions? Be specific. Hit me up on Twitter. My DMs are open. Always prepare files, and I'm going to hand it over to Jonas.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Let me put this like that. So yeah, let's wrap up the show. I think we showed some pretty cool stuff here, and yeah, let me just show you again that when you go to the Maxon website, under events, there is everything listed where we attend or that we do, be it a live in-person event or a live stream. So definitely check this out. The ZBrush Summit is also starting today, and yeah, definitely check that out. There are a ton of talented artists there, and a lot of great stuff to watch. And also check out all of the other shows as well. So yeah, VFX and Chill is also starting tomorrow again.
They're back.
They are back, and there's a lot of great stuff in the works. All right, so just in case you came in late or you want to catch up with any of the other live streams that we did so far, always feel free to visit us at the Maxon Training Team YouTube channel, subscribe, and watch the recordings here. And also, if you want to learn one of our softwares, then go to Cineversity.maxon.net. Also, it is under Learn Cineversity. Here we go. And you can watch all of these Getting Started series and get up to speed with,
don't forget the old Cineversity. The old Cineversity has 2 centuries worth of educational content.
That would be under Cineversity Legacy. That's the old one.
Exactly. And watch if you want to be certified, make sure you watch the quick tips.
Yes. Yes. That as well. The quick tips can be found, by the way, here. There's a playlist. Isn't there a playlist? I think I created something here. Learn fast. Cinema 4D quick tips. There we go. That's the quick tips playlist.
Never snap to guides.
Never snap guys. Yeah, just follow
Never do that. Well, I would disagree with that statement. However, so yeah, and the last thing that I want to show before I have to run is the Maxon exclusive wear store. Let me just copy paste that link also into the chat. Thank you for adding it already to the screen, Noseman. So there is a link with a coupon code, and when you enter the site, you are asked to type in the coupon code or paste it, and then you come to this beautiful site with beautiful t-shirts, and you can order one for free, and you only have to pay for the shipping. And that's it for today, my friends.
it. Was as usual.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think we showed quite some nice things here, and yeah, I hope to see you next time. Be sure to check out all of the cool events that we're doing ourselves and also that we are attending. Thank you, Noseman.
It was my pleasure, as always.
For all these great things. And also sorry again that I forgot to introduce you.
Everyone knows me, don't worry. I'm Greek, everyone knows me.
Yes, of course. All right. And also, in advance, thank you, Dr. Sassi, for creating all of these amazing timestamps that you, always create.
And a million years of worth of tutorials, right? Maybe we should forget about that.
Absolutely. All right. Cool. So, see you next time, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye.